Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by BetterHelp.com and LittleShaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that is very common when dealing with pathologically narcissistic people, and that is when narcissists assign motives to other people. This is something a lot of people deal with, and many find it very confusing or painful. So I thought we could talk about it on the show today. It is unfortunately not uncommon at all for you to suddenly find yourself trying to defend against baseless accusations about your motives or your intentions. And this is one of the things that ensnares people in these relationships for so long. They are trying to prove that they are not the person the narcissist seems to think they are. It leads to people trying harder and harder to do everything perfectly, and eventually it leads to people feeling like they can do nothing at all because everything they do and say is interpreted as being wrong or stupid or harmful or malicious. This is very frustrating, and it can cause extreme damage to people if they are unable to see this for what it really is, which is either the conscious manipulation of a cold-blooded liar or the paranoid overreaction of someone who sees negativity and rejection everywhere. What it is not is reality. Yes, communication is a two-way street. And yes, the way one person receives something is just as important as how the other person is giving it. But there is a line where this can become unreasonable. If you say good morning to someone and they get offended, that's not reasonable. If you give someone respectful, constructive criticism and they claim that you must hate them in order to say that, that's not reasonable. If you call someone out for genuinely rude or toxic behavior and they claim that you're picking on them or being unfair, that's not reasonable. You have to be able to speak to people. You have to be able to disagree with them or tell them things that they don't like or don't want to hear. That's life. It's part of being a human being. The problem is that narcissists don't understand that, care about it, or agree with it. If you cared about them, they would never feel bad about anything you say or do to them. Since they do, you don't care about them, and your motive is to make them feel bad. The proof of this is that they feel bad. You can explain all day long that you didn't mean it that way or they're taking it wrong, and it doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't. The way they see it, they wouldn't feel bad if you did not make them feel bad. This means you did it on purpose or you didn't care, and that's the end of it. Even when it's a conscious lie on their part, this behavior still occurs for the same reason. This is a person who cannot take ownership of anything, not their thoughts, feelings, or actions. So whether they're accusing you of having malicious motives because they're paranoid or because they're lying, it's really all the same reason and it's all the same result. They cannot take ownership of something about themselves. They cannot take responsibility for their side of the relationship, and they're afraid of the rejection that they believe is imminent. The way it affects you is also the same regardless. This is not a black and white situation either. A narcissist that lies about this at one time might genuinely believe it in another situation. People get so caught up in the idea that this is an either-or situation, and it's really not. Narcissists are people, and like the other people in the world, they do different things at different times. Trying to fit them into too narrow of a box limits your understanding of this, which is only going to limit your ability to protect yourself, so don't forget that. It really doesn't matter why they are doing it in the end. It helps enormously to understand so that you can finally cope with what's happening, but in practical terms regarding the reality of the relationship, it doesn't matter at all. Incidentally, this is often where confusion about gaslighting can come in. People can be concerned that they are the narcissist or they are the gaslighter because they find themselves saying things out of frustration like, "That's just in your head though, that never happened," or "You're overreacting," or "You are being way too sensitive here, I did not mean it that way at all." These are all considered classic gaslighting phrases and things that abusers say, so it can be very confusing for people. The thing to remember is that context matters. It's very important. It's not gaslighting to say someone is overreacting if they actually are. It's not gaslighting when you're saying something didn't happen because it really didn't. It's not gaslighting when you're saying you didn't mean something that way because you really don't. Sometimes these things are said because they're true. It's not always gaslighting every time these words are used. So consider the context the next time you're worried about gaslighting or being accused of it. Are you lying about the situation? Are you trying to confuse this person so you can get away with something, get out of something, or control things somehow? Are you trying to dismiss their feelings? If not, then you're not gaslighting, whether someone says you are or not. You know your own motivations. It's one thing to say we should always be respectful of the feelings of other people. We should, and we have a responsibility to do that. But when you cannot even talk to somebody because everything you say upsets, offends, or insults them somehow, there has to be a line drawn. Either this person is so sensitive and or you are so insensitive that you're just not going to be able to communicate with them, or they are using constantly hurt feelings as a way to control the relationship and shut other people down. Either way, this relationship is not going to be able to progress. If you cannot communicate with somebody, you can't have a relationship. And relationships where it's impossible to have even basic conversation without there being a problem will not work. Whatever the reason it happens, mode of assignment is often very painful for people. It hurts that someone you care about would believe you have such terrible or selfish motives, or that you want to hurt them, or whatever they're accusing you of. This is what traps people in these situations, trying to prove to the narcissist that the narcissist is wrong. It becomes disproportionately important to convince this person to see you the way you see yourself. This is understandable, but it's unhealthy. More than that, it's actually harmful and dangerous. This person is not in charge of your worth or your value. They're not in charge of your self-esteem. They're not in charge of how you see yourself. Getting to a point where it affects you this much is very damaging. Not just because this is not their responsibility in the first place, but because narcissists are not the kind of people who should ever be trusted with something like that. Ever. Relying on a narcissist to validate your worth, take responsibility for, or even minimally support your emotional well-being is very dangerous. What we often find in these situations is that people are unconsciously trying to work out trauma and conditioning from caregivers or earlier relationships. It's not uncommon at all for people who have wounds related to caregiver neglect or emotional abandonment, even if it's unintentional, to have challenges with codependency, people-pleasing, and other similar types of things. When they encounter a narcissist, the narcissist engages in a pattern of love bombing and positive ego bombardment that results in people believing they have found the love and validation they've been looking for all their lives. Finally, they've been chosen. Finally, they matter. They don't realize that the level of focus and intensity and idealization they are experiencing from the narcissist is not only not healthy or normal, it's not love at all. It's ego manipulation, which is all the narcissist really knows how to do. If you pay attention to their interactions with other people, you will see that nearly all of their interactions with others involve ego feeding, ego starving, or ego shaming in some way. Love bombing is ego feeding, and like most other addictions, it feels good, but it's bad for you. Ego is the most powerful drug of all. When this focus and idealization is withdrawn by the narcissist, it feels like a terrible loss, and it triggers the addiction. It triggers the need to get it back. The narcissist responds with insisting the other person caused them to withdraw it because of something they're lacking or something they did wrong, which then triggers the need to fix it and a deep desire to be loved and accepted. Both people in this situation are placing the responsibility for their feelings on the other person, and consequently nobody is happy because nobody's needs are being met. If you find yourself in this situation, ask yourself what you are really trying to do. Why is proving your worth to this person so important that you would devalue yourself in order to try to do that? Are you really trying to prove your worth to them? Or are you actually trying to get them to prove your worth to you? When someone doesn't choose you or change for you, do you see this for what it really is? Or do you take it as proof that you were not worth the effort or that you weren't good enough to be chosen? This is a dangerous place to be in, and too many people don't realize that's where they are until enormous damage has already been done. Someone not valuing you is not representative of your worth. I'm not just saying that to be supportive or to make anybody feel better or because it's the quote right thing to say. I'm saying it because it's really not. Logically and realistically, this belief does not make sense. People lose or discard valuable things all the time because they don't know any better or because they just don't care. That doesn't say anything about the value of the item. It says something about the person who's being careless or the person that's throwing it away. You know who you are, what you meant, what you said. You know your motives. That's all that needs to matter. Trying to convince a person differently who has a vested interest in not believing you is a complete and total waste of time. This hurts, but it's not about you. It's about the other person and the way they need to see the world so that they can live in it. You're not going to change that no matter what you think and no matter what they tell you. Some people should not have access to valuable things because they don't know how to take care of them. Don't put something as valuable as your self-esteem and self-worth into someone else's hands. That is not their job, nor is it their responsibility. And it shouldn't be, because when you do that, you have given another person the power to choose for you how you feel about yourself. Nobody should ever have that power over you. Ever. I hope that clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via Skype, and through email worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to go ahead and do that. I teach workshops, seminars, and clinics throughout the year, so if you're interested in seeing what we're running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. Several of these workshops are also available as self-directed courses on my website if you are not able to attend them live. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast, brought to you by BetterHelp.com and LittleShaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.